Today on the Hotelier Huddle, I'm sitting down with Group Revenue Manager Matthew Kemp to dig into hotel revenue management, the strategy behind the numbers, the pricing obsessions nobody talks about, and the pitfalls that can sink your profitability. Whether you're a revenue manager, working the front desk, just starting out in our industry, or a hotel general manager, Matt's stories will change how you look at your hospitality career. Enjoy. Matt Kemp, thank you for joining the Hotelier Huddle today, my friend, particularly because I am very well aware of how flat out busy you are in your big highfalutin job of cluster revenue manager at Oscars Group. Thank you very much for joining me. It's nice to see you.
It's great to see you. It's always a pleasure to be able to have chats.
Thanks, Matt Kemp. For those that may not already know you, I just always like to go over the career journey so far of my guests, especially when it's as varied as yours. So I love that you, as a revenue manager, you started off with a brief stint in food and beverage, and maybe you can comment on that in a bit because I find that really interesting. Then you were revenue and reservations manager at Mervec, and that's where you and I met. And then a revenue analyst with Accor Hotels, revenue and reservations manager at the Old Clare Hotel in Sydney. I love that property. And group revenue manager with View Hotels. And we worked together there again as well. You were my client there again. Thank you very much. And then revenue and distribution manager at Bailey Lodges, looking after the revenue and pricing for Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Wow. And group revenue and distribution manager at Alazio Group. Really fascinating gig that one was. And now you're cluster revenue manager at Oscars Group. Did I miss anything?
Oh, look, quite a few other things in the earlier days, but yes, I like to say that my hospitality career has actually been 25 years long, since at the age of 15 I was running drinks for state politicians in the state capitol building back in Rhode Island, United States, where that was a hospitality job, you know.
Absolutely.
So that's where it all started, and then restaurants and food and beverage there, and then reception and reservations when I finally got here, and on and on.
Wow. So that's another thing you and I have in common. We both started in hospitality at the age of 15, and we both started off in the United States and then ended up here in Australia. So two more things we have in common, right?
Put them on the list.
Yeah, add it to the list. So on the topic of revenue management, since most of your roles now in your career have had the word revenue in the title, on the topic of revenue management heresy, the beautiful irony is that in hotel revenue management, what might seem like heresy to guests, dynamic pricing, minimum stays, rate fences, filters, is actually gospel to hoteliers, right? So yes, the room was $99 yesterday and $399 today. It's not heresy. It's science. I'm keen to hear, Matt, where you think our revenue management discipline needs to have a good hard think about itself.
Well, I think some of those things that the guests do argue with us, sometimes they may have a point.
Sure.
In that, why is this room worth double what it was last week? And it's because somebody will pay that. So it's not necessarily what it's worth, it's what you can sell it for. But, when we get a little bit too into the science of it, and forget that it's an art, and forget that we're in a human business. So, if you're picking apart, if you have 38 different market segments and you're picking apart each and every one and trying to find a couple of extra dollars in this one that's worth about 3% of your overall contribution to your revenue, what are you doing? What are you doing when you're going into a corporate rate negotiation? And this may be a 2,000 room night account, and that's big. That's a big corporate account, right? 2,000 room nights, and you're haggling with your BDM to say their budget is $250 a night, and that's their maximum budget. But I pitched $255. And it's like, well, that's $10,000 in the year. And if you're taking a 2,000 room night account, chances are you're a fairly big hotel, and maybe your budget's what, 10, 15, $20 million for the year. What percent are we arguing over here? And why can't we just say, okay, it's $5, sign the account up. Now I have 2,000 room nights I don't have to worry about. Let's move on. So I think we get caught up a lot in doing all of these sciencey, mathy, spreadsheety things that we do. And don't get me wrong, I love my spreadsheets. You'll
I
probably
know you
Excel for my
do.
cold dead hands, and I do not let Copilot touch it. I said that's all me. But it also means that there is time in your day. If you stop arguing over the 1%, spend your time on your 80, 80/20 and all that stuff, but really spend the time on the 80. And then you can get into other things where you may find something more significant. Revenue managers, do you actually get out there in your res departments? Do you sit in there? Do you sit in there for a while? Listen. Do you go to your front office? Do you hear what they're saying? Yes, it's
Yes.
anecdotal, but there is anecdata. Can we find something in doing our non-traditional science that is the art of revenue management?
I love that. I absolutely
And
love that. And it's not about, I think what I hear you saying, and I agree, is it's not about choosing your battles. Maybe that's part of it, but it's
yeah,
about the long game and it's about focusing on the right things. And
exactly.
anecdotal is anecdata, said Matt Camp. You heard it here first, folks. I love that.
I mean, this is, I'm going through a thing with the property at the moment where if you look at their market mix that comes out of the system and gets put into the end of month reports and all of that, they're an 80% public rate hotel. They got a little bit of corporate, little tiny bit of group, and that's about it. But it's all public rates. But turns out the GM got in the front office manager and they really started a program of let's find every single email address, business card, everything we can from these guests. Turns out that all of the corporate business that's coming through the area is just using booking.com. They're just using consortia rates. They're capturing all these. They're actually about a 60% corporate hotel.
And there it
That's
is.
a whole different strategy that you have to make for this property. You have to
Yes.
think completely differently about it to say, okay, maybe because my public rates are now treading too close to whatever my corporate contracts would be, my corporate contracts aren't having any traction. Let's go out there. Let's actually offer them a really good traction corporate rate, get them to stay only with us instead of browsing booking.com for is the apart hotel across the street cheaper or is the one down the road cheaper that's actually closer to the motorway. All of these things, right? But if you just get into it and say, it doesn't make sense that we're an 80% public business hotel out here in the suburbs, where who are these people? They're corporates and they just choose to book public rates for whatever reason. Give them an incentive.
That's terrific advice. Question everything and don't over science it.
Yeah. And like be happy to just take something, put it in the done pile and move on rather than like fight and scrape and find every dollar, because you'll find it somewhere else. Like you will, if you just give yourself that free headspace to actually just think and kick stuff around.
I love what you just said then on the one size does not fit all strategy. Do you see, or has it been your experience that there is one revenue management truth that applies whether you're pricing a remote wilderness lodge as you have or a city hotel as you have?
Yeah, I think the only one I haven't really done in depth is like Caravan Park, which, maybe someday. I'll talk to one of your previous guests, Tammy, and see if she can get me in one.
Yes.
The thing that really, really I find, and it was the luxury lodges that really showed me this, was your market will find you. You can influence through heavy expenditure in marketing campaigns and sales and refurbishing your product and changing around who you are to try and change the market that finds you. But more often than not, your guests are going to be your guests. Your market's going to be your market. So you can swim against that tide or you can swim with it. And, accepting who you are as a property, if it's an acceptable thing to you. If your property is not acceptable to you, then change your property, change that up and change what you're doing. But if you are who you are and you lean into that, you'll find it's a lot easier to get business, to attract people, to make people happy if you just are who you are. There's no shame in being an economy property and being a mid-scale property and and having the lowest rate in your area. I'd say be the second lowest rate in your area, at least just try that, but be who you are and accept that. And if you're authentic to that, your guests will recognize that. They'll appreciate that. If you have flaws and defects in that, but you are who you are, okay, work on it, but okay.
Absolutely great. I love that. You began your career after a brief stint in food and beverage as a hotelier from the bottom up, right? During the global financial crisis, GFC round one. I'd
Yes.
love it if you would talk about why that didn't scare you away and why you didn't make an early escape during that first gig and what's kept you in the industry.
What actually brought me into hotels was the futility of trying to find a restaurant job in a new country during the GFC, because I was
Interesting.
also a new immigrant to this land. So yeah, I had put my resume into every restaurant within a 20-kilometer radius and just nothing, nothing, nothing. Saw an ad for a hotel front desk, and I said, I have translatable skills. I'm good with people. I
Sure.
can upsell. Why not? So went in, interviewed. Yep, they like me. Great. I'm on the desk. Now, because we're still in GFC recovery at this time, it's mid 2009. A lot of wage budgets are at the bare minimum, so I'm doing shifts alone. A restaurant manager who's also working alone is holding the duty manager keys because I'm not trained on the fire panel or any of that sort of good stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
it really is a trial by fire, and you just learn from having to just do so many different things. I'm helping out in the banquets area. I'm organizing the inbound coach groups that are coming through and trying to make sure all the payments are sorted. And we had an on-site reservations coordinator who was there doing all the groups because there was a really fantastic central reservations at that hotel company that did
Okay.
all of our bookings through Mirvac Hotels, run by some really incredible people
I
at
wonder
that
who that
time.
was.
So
Who that?
so really the on-site reservation coordinator didn't have to sit there and do phone and all of that traditional
Right.
res stuff for so long, but they got to be like kind of in groups, work with the area revenue manager as to what rate should we quote for this and what are the strategies, what are we looking for here. That person then said they were leaving, so I wasn't even first choice for the permanent replacement, but eventually I got it. So yeah, just being there and then reservations and seeing a little bit more into the back end of, okay, our rates are this, our rates are that, corporate rates are this, and looking at like the old history and forecast report. It's not a forecast, I know, but it's called the history and forecast report. Like that just sort of gradual exposure to information, to sneak peeks at the strategy, to learning, okay, this is a good month, this is a bad month, those sorts of things that really pique the interest. And when I see it in other people that I try and bring along, I notice when people will come up to me and mention something about our stats. Because one, I know they've looked at them, which is like a rare breed in the hotel anyway, short of the general manager and then maybe the director of sales
Yes.
sometimes reads the morning reports. Everyone else into the trash can. Fine. But it's then, somebody on the desk, somebody in res, somebody in conferencing, somebody in even food and beverage says, oh yeah, rev report. Or what does that mean? What's RevPAR? Like when somebody asks me what's RevPAR, I'm like, okay, you're looking at stuff. That's what you need
That's what you
to
need.
start out, is you've looked at things, you've noticed something,
You're
you've picked up
curious.
on something. You can at least spot patterns or numbers in that. You don't need to be maths genius, bachelor of science in spreadsheets. You don't have to have all of that background and then say, oh, okay, you are qualified for revenue management. You just have to have the spark, and we can teach you the rest. We can teach you how to actually do Excel formulas. We can teach you how to forecast, because I was taught all of that by
Yes.
someone. I was taught all of that by another revenue manager. I then was, are you interested in being a revenue analyst? And I said, yes. And then I had a really, really good revenue manager teach me all of the concepts, teach me what they were seeing, what they were looking at, what they were thinking, how they thought it, and absorb all of that, absorb different experiences, absorb other people's experiences, and say, this is now who I am. This is how I think about it. And I'm going to learn from everything I now try, and then show someone else, this is how I think. Well, how do you think? And get all of these new and different perspectives. And that's why I've enjoyed being in so many different kinds of accommodation businesses, because each one has its own things to teach you. You go in with, this, oh, I can tell them how to actually be an accommodation business. And then they eventually show you, no, you don't know, we'll teach you.
Yeah.
And there's knowledge to be shared both ways. Because also every hotel, every business you go into thinks it's a unicorn and that your established laws of economics don't apply here. And it's like, they still kind of do,
Yeah.
but you have some unique variables that once we account for that, these laws will still apply.
It's so true, isn't it? And I really agree with you there. And it's, you can't necessarily teach aptitude, and you definitely can't teach curiosity. And it's when someone like you or some of your mentors identifies and appreciates and encourages that curiosity and then teaches them, and then they end up someone like you who evolves and progresses their career in this area. In fact, you just reminded me, I know a brilliant revenue director in London whose first job was a doorman and a valet at the front door at a 5-star hotel. And he went to the front desk manager and said he had been counting certain kinds of brands of luggage on certain guests. And he noticed that a certain behavior in those types of guests who had that brand of luggage, and they always arrived at certain times and certain days of the week. And this front desk manager went, what are you even on about? Yeah, go talk to the revenue manager. And that was, okay, hang on. This guy has a curiosity and an aptitude for the disciplines and the mindset required to identify market segmentation and strategy and behavioral guest patterns. And that guy that was a valet who showed a curiosity and an aptitude is now a wildly successful revenue director.
I met a hotel manager of a motel out in regional New South Wales. I was out there the other day, and he said he was talking about himself. He had an accounting degree. He was an accountant, but found it was a bit too boring, and he wanted to get into operations and all that. And I was like, but you would have made an excellent revenue manager then.
Yeah.
And with all due respect to my wonderful finance people who are all great people and great at their jobs and do have wonderful personalities. But if you find accounts boring, go to revenue. Give that a try, because you'll find it's way more exciting because you can make stuff happen. You don't just wait for things and count them. Like it's a wonderful tip of the spear of being out there and making finance happen.
I love that. I've never heard it put that way before, in that if you're in accounting and finance, you're waiting for the exciting things to happen and counting the exciting things, whether it's good excitement or scary excitement.
Yeah.
You're counting the exciting things. Whereas as a director, revenue, or a commercial director, you are making the exciting things happen. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I don't think the accounts department can go, YOLO, let's see what happens when we just spend more money. Whereas we can go, YOLO, let's see what happens when we just drop rate $100 over the next 5 hours and just see, can we just grab a bunch of rooms and make up a little bit of a deficit to budget. Sometimes you just have to do that. You just have to see, okay, what is the pure demand of this market, right? If I drop my rate to the absolute lowest I would ever want to take it and just see, are a whole bunch of bookings going to come in? And then they do, and you're like, all right, cool, let's now find the level. Or they don't, and you're like, well, nobody's booking. I may as well just keep my rate intact and then only sell a room when it's really worth it.
And some of that falls into a new acronym that someone educated me on the other day, which is ROMO, which is relief of missing out. Yeah, I'm gonna sit back and kind of watch that trend and what my comp set's getting up to for a minute. And if it all goes wrong, or if it's an epic failure and all my competitors drop below and I rise to the top of my comp set, then I have ROMO, relief of missing out. Thank you very much.
I was discussing with some people a while ago, but we were talking about how we used to fear that these algorithmic based rate management systems would put us out of a job. And some companies did try that, and we saw how it went for them. Good luck. But to then say, I've found much more relief in actually just letting those programs drive, right? Do I need to be in there and changing my rates 2-3 times a day? And somebody said something really good. It was like, if you're changing rates that often, are you revenue managing or are you day trading? And I was like, that is exactly what you're day trading. You're like, I'm going to get an extra $20 for the next 8 hours on this one day. What are
And
you
you spent
doing?
$1,000 in labor to gain an extra $20.
Yeah, or even just, had you left it alone, probably you were on the cusp of just selling those. Like, we often think that our guests are watching us as closely as we're watching each other. No, they've gone browsing for rates once, maybe twice. They don't know when the prices have changed unless they change really significantly. They don't know. And they don't know the difference between 10, 20, even $30. So move your rates significantly or leave them in place. But don't tinker. Don't day trade. Just find something else to do with that energy in that time. Because you're sitting there and you get the nervous energy and you think you need to dedicate all that time. Go find something else to do.
That's really fascinating.
When we start tinkering like that, it's because we're nervous, we're anxious, and
Yes.
we feel that we don't have enough control and we just need to control something.
You're right.
And our
It
rates
comes from
the
a
things
place
that
of
we
fear.
have. Yeah, we have this unilateral control over rates. So like, that's my only lever. I'm just going to pull it. Go find something else to do. Go learn something about your hotel. Like,
Go talk to the
go
reservations people. Go talk to some guests.
Go make a room. Go with housekeeping. Can I help you make a room? I just want to make a room. Right? Put yourself in a different headspace for a half hour. Go, clean a toilet. Like, do something. It lets you just break out of the little like shell that you've built around yourself and say, okay, actually, I'm not the most important thing here. The most important thing here is the product that we're selling to guests who are paying us a lot of their hard-earned money for, or their company's hard-earned money, and they don't care. But either way, it reminds us what's actually happening at the face of this transactions that we just sit there and count up and try and make happen. That is a person who sleeps in a bed for a night and leaves in the morning, and a housekeeper goes in and changes those sheets and cleans that bathroom and vacuums that floor, and
Yes.
then we do it all over again. Break yourself out of the shell and then come back, look at it again.
It's so true, Matt, because in addition to the physiological benefits that you just described, it's also just that it does actually, when you get out amongst it, even with housekeeping, it does actually inform your revenue strategy decisions, oddly enough. And I mean, I remember forever ago when I did my 8-week management rotation in housekeeping in Florida, forever ago, those 8 weeks, it was the most backbreaking, educational 8 weeks in my career. And I still, it's, hardwired in my brain and still informs how I work today. So it's good for the physiological benefits you described, and also to appreciate just getting out amongst it, and your colleagues too.
And you will not lightly say, oh, can't we just flip those rooms over again on the same day?
That's right.
For that, you will not lightly consider that an option when you flipped a room over in a half hour. Like, you will really, really, really think about, am I just suggesting this because I had to be a quick number, a couple of thousand, or is this absolutely necessary to the success of our hotel?
That's right. That's right. I love that. Now, you brought up spreadsheets. I know you love yours. Thinking about long-standing, as in old school, methods, meeting modern innovation, you once said to me that tech will take your spreadsheet only out of your cold, dead hands. And I think you mean it. So what say you to tech companies developing integrated whiz-bang solutions that eliminate manual spreadsheets?
The thing about spreadsheets is that, what are you using the spreadsheet for? Are you using it, to my earlier point, of trying to over-science everything that you do? Or are you using it to learn, and are you using it to communicate? One of the first things I do when I come into anywhere is I implement a daily report. That's a very quick snapshot, and it's half for operational people, right? They can see very quickly few of the key metrics that they need to see to know where we are and where we're going and what's happening. And half of it's for me so that I can learn what is normal here, right? What is a normal day's pickup? What is a normal week's pickup? What is a normal month's pickup? What is our in-month pickup? What do these patterns look like? And if you're not using something that can teach you that gets it into your head, not so much that you become prejudiced or biased and say, we don't do this, we don't do that, this always happens, but to know this looks normal, this doesn't look normal. Because if you boil down a revenue manager's job 90% of the time, it's finding this doesn't look normal. Whether it's a good or bad doesn't look normal. That's mostly what we do, is find stuff that doesn't look normal and action it.
That's such an interesting perspective.
I find that, a spreadsheet, or having the spreadsheet skills, one, it gives you, it still lets you play the maths and do out calculations and figure problems, and it keeps that mental sharpness for you, so that if the computer's doing it for you, when you have to, on the fly, in an owner's meeting, in a budget process, and in that, work out, all right, actually $3 more to the rate, and this % more occupancy would be this much more, flow through to the bottom line. Okay, we need 50 grand more profit. Here's how we can get it very quickly. If you don't keep sharp on that, you're going to get found out. But
yes.
Yeah, if you're trying to like oversize and build this giant complex spreadsheet that does all this and was back, that has probably passed. Our BI tools are now good enough where if you're just trying to collect a lot of stuff into there, but if you need quick answers, if you want something that's simple to communicate and get out to people and is accessible and meaningful to them, spreadsheet's still got its place.
Exactly right. So they will always have a place. Maybe it just doesn't need to be all end all. I love that.
Exactly.
If you could go back, Matt Camp, and give your early career self, whether it's, back to the guy that was serving hospitality in Rhode Island senators, or your first revenue analyst gig, your early career self, one piece of advice, what would it be? Is there anything you'd tell that guy to do differently?
Look, I would always worry a bit about changing anything that I've done because it wouldn't be where I am now, which is pretty good. But I would probably have myself relax a bit more. I'd give my sort of opening advice about stop trying to aggressively chase down every penny you can. But it was a learning experience.
Sure.
But yeah, I think number one, and maybe just at least on the outset, be a little bit more prepared. When you're going into meetings and month-end reviews and stuff like that, be a little bit more prepared. There were a couple of early incidents. I didn't have some or all of the answers I should have had. But, once again, it was all learning experiences. So who's to say that I didn't actually need that?
Yeah, because those learning experiences, it all frames, your skill set and why you're good at what you do now, right?
And I think if you talked to any real top level revenue manager, they would have some sort of nightmare meeting that they could tell you about, like, oh man, I just went in there and it was a firing squad and I wasn't ready. And ones that they would point to themselves and be like, yeah, I stepped in it big time. And you come out of it the other side. Generally, if you're genuinely good and meaning well and have good intentions, your management, your ownership, they'll see that and they'll say, okay, learn from this one. Don't come back in like that again. And you learn.
I agree. I think it's the magic combination of best intentions, best managers, best mentors always leads to success, even when you have epic disasters. If you have good intentions and good managers and good mentors, an epic disaster can be terrific.
Yeah, and the best leaders I've ever had have said to me, look, if you make a decision, if you make a choice, you put a strategy in place, if you had a reason for it, if you can articulate what that was and you can communicate what you were trying to do there and what your intentions were, so I'll back you every time. I have no problem with any of that, but know why you're doing something. And if you can communicate it, great. And I've told that to people I've brought up as well. I said, if you find yourself in a situation, because you can't always ask up the chain and you shouldn't always ask up the chain, if you need to make a spot call, if you had a reason why, I'll back it. We may talk about what to do in the future if you're in that situation, but you can't know a situation until you come across a situation. And that's the only way we get good people to move up and move on in our industry, is put them in situations, see how they react, teach them about them, and then bring them up.
I agree. And that's what leads to hospitality and our industry being a place for careers, not just a landing spot while you study or work on some other career, but it's a place for excellent careers. That's great.
Absolutely. I've always tried to keep my eyes open. For a long time in revenue management, it's been about a bit of a Star Wars reference, but there was a Sith where there's always two, a master and an apprentice. And I look for an apprentice, somebody I can bring up, and then one day they'll have apprentice of their own. And that's how we make good revenue people. And there are now programs and degrees out there that people can do, but you still got to be in it and doing it to
Yes.
really know what it is that you're doing here.
Yes. Okay, Matt Camp, a final toast. I like to end every Hotelier Huddle with this final toast. If you are raising a glass to celebrate hoteliers everywhere, what would your toast be?
So here's my glass. Here's to everyone that took a risk, that went before us, that didn't pull the ladder up, but extended a hand down and brought us all along. And may we have longer arms to reach down and help those below us up as well.
That is amazing. Amazing toast. Perfection. I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt Camp. Thanks for joining the huddle today.
No problem. My pleasure.